How are you, man? I'm Gil Roth, and you're listening to a bonus episode of my Virtual Memories Show podcast. This is a COVID check-in episode where I record with a past guest of the Virtual Memories Show to find out how they're holding up during the pandemic. As far as how I'm doing, I'm pretty good. Yesterday I went to the printer to pick up the 300-copy run of my zine, Haiku for Business Travelers, so that was pretty neat. I'd been threatening to do this for years, if not decades. And, last night I kind of thought, at least I've accomplished something during this lockdown. And then I remembered that I've recorded almost 70 podcasts, run almost 250 miles, worked with the federal government on vaccine and therapeutic manufacturing issues for the past 3 months, and gotten a lot of other things done. So it's not like I've been sitting on my ass this whole time. Still, I'm glad, I made something different than what I usually make. I'll start mailing them out this week, and you can find out more at haikuforbusinesstravelers.com. Travelers only has one L. Or just email me. You can find my contact info pretty easy. Also, for those of you on tenterhooks from yesterday's episode, I did, in fact, rejoin my running group for a run yesterday morning. Did pretty well. One of the guys pushed the pace a bit, and I was kind of gassed on the last last third of a mile of our 6.3 mile run. But it was good to just run with the guys and just sort of catch up while maintaining appropriate distance. Next week, my running schedule should overlap with theirs a bunch, so I'll try and get in a few more that way instead of going solo this whole time. Anyway, let's get to today's guest. Stoya is joining me this time from Brooklyn. She is a writer, actress, adult performer, entrepreneur, and a lot of other things. And she is one of the last people I recorded with in the before time. It was mid-February when we got together. And at that point, she was in rehearsals for Dean Haspiel's play, The War of Woo. But that had to be postponed once a lockdown began in New York City. We'd planned to record this one a few weeks ago, and we were going to talk about pandemic life and the launch of the new issue of her online magazine, Zero Spaces, and how she's conducting virtual sex-lit book clubs and sex bingo with our pals at Gemini Scorpio, and, just how she's maintaining during the whole lockdown and pandemic era. But the protests against police violence really pushed everything else to the side, and I wasn't 100% sure how to frame the conversation. So I'm just going to apologize now for if I seem insensitive or if I keep moving the subject around over the course of the episode or try to steer things a little bit. It's just because I don't know how to talk about what we're all going through right now. And it's going to sound weird to say, but this conversation with Stoya got me thinking more about what I should be doing with this platform than any of the other check-in episodes I've done so far. So the upshot is I've kind of followed her lead. I'm making plans to bring a lot more Black and marginal voices to the podcast going forward. Just trying to better represent and get out of my own cocoon, which I always fall into. So there'll be more about that in the episodes ahead. So I also just want to say, Stoya, thank you. Now, as caveats go, just her mic setup, not as good as mine, but what the hell, no big deal. Occasional cat and roommate noise in the background too, but that's fine. And here's me and Stoya. I guess just as an opening question, how are you dealing? How is the whole situation? And it's certainly changed over the past couple of months and the past week, but how are you?
There's the backdrop of the COVID-19 stuff and the quarantine and all of that. And I was coping with the social isolation by doing all these streaming events and I do a couple of events at the sex positive space in Brooklyn. So we moved those online. And that was actually, I was really making hay while the sun shined. Like, I was like, okay, we got my events moved online. It's actually great because, you know, people from around the world can attend. And like, sure enough, we had international attendance. And all that was super cool. And then George Floyd was killed. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I do believe that silence is complicity. But also there's misinformation circulating, whether you think that's like an intentional thing or not. Like, it is occurring, so you want to be careful not to pass on inaccurate information. And you know, the complicated part about when you have a platform, you have a responsibility to say something in certain situations, is in order to be effective, you can't just say something.
Right.
You have this platform, you know your audience. You have to say things that you think they're going to be able to hear and that might actually have an effect on changing their minds. And, you know, this is the kind of thing where it's like, you know, you like hope, you know, you reach a couple 100,000 people, you hope you broaden the perspective of one.
That's something I was pondering because of our last conversation, as though you and I talk all the time, our one conversation. It was very much, you know, we got into that question about the relationship with audiences and how so much of what you do, you know, in your various professional aspects is about, you know, relating to different groups and relating to audiences and putting yourself out there. And I wondered, you know, how that's helped you, or, you know, whether that's been of benefit again for that first phase of what we've gone through. And then now, as we're experiencing a very different social upheaval than we were when we were just sheltering in place.
Yeah. I mean,
Which wasn't exactly a question, but it's sort of a question. So
the thing that's coming to mind in response to that is, I mean, I have to do a little bit of like exposition. So there's this organization called AVN, the Adult Video News. They were initially a magazine. It's a lot of like, you know, like industry people. They had an award show. They're essentially like porn's version of Variety. And they put out a statement yesterday. They made some like horrible misstep with regard to George Floyd. I don't even want to repeat it. But
it's
then,
for the best.
yeah, then they put out a statement that was like, we're getting rid of the category interracial. That will no longer be a tag. We are speaking out against the practice of paying people more to have sex with Black men and paying Black women less. This should have, like, what we're doing now should have been done decades ago. So that is something.
I was going to ask because during the pandemic, I thought I'd read how the adult industry had a lot of lessons for us in terms of testing regimens, contact tracing, et cetera, you know, how it applies in your industry and how we can, you know, roll that out to the larger population. And I'd wondered, you know, this situation, you know, what lessons we can draw that way. And that's actually a remarkably progressive one that you just brought up. That's something I hadn't even thought about.
Yeah, I think I have an ask for you, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, and you can edit it out if you want to.
Sure.
So there's this woman, Cinnamon Love, who I've known my whole career, and she's a porn performer, or former porn performer, and she is so freaking smart, and she's Black. And she texted me today, hey, what AVN did is like something, but I think we can get more done. And I would love for you to talk to Cinnamon professionally,
Connect us. You
about
know me, I'm looking for good conversation with people.
yeah.
And honestly, my track record of non-white guests is terrible. And I need to open my perspectives and horizons. I once went 2 years without a non-white guest on the show by accident, but we know that's not really by accident. We know we just reinforce things. So yeah, I'm fine. Connect away, and we'll talk.
Awesome.
I'm looking around. The one plus side for me of doing these remotely instead of in person is that I can have a browser window open and look things up. And I have her in front of me right now, so that's something. Although I don't have her, talking in theoretical perspectives on this stuff, but still,
She had an essay in the feminist porn book. It was really smart. She's so rad.
Yeah.
And that's really the thing to be doing right now, is actively uplifting Black perspectives. Like that's something that I can do, because I can't really go to a protest. The crowds, there's so many layers of anxiety inducing things, and I just don't think I'm like mentally strong enough to.
Is it more the pandemic anxiety or the police brutality anxiety? I'm just asking. I don't know what your mindset is right now.
It's really like the first thing is like, what if someone gropes me, because every time I'm in a crowd with men. Like,
sure. Yeah. I wasn't thinking, again, I got my cocoon there. So
like that's actually, I'm like, okay, so like what if that happens, and then like there's a problem, and then I'm talking to a cop, and I'm really bad at talking to police officers, and like things go sideways, and then it's going to be like, a liability, right? It's going to be a distraction. And that's something that I believe in all the discussion of like activism and how to be an ally and what's needed. That's something that resonates with me as useful to do, which is like show up and be like, hey, let me tell you about this awesome person.
Yeah, I've sort of been hoping to do that without I've reached out to a couple of non-white past guests, hoping to get them on the show. They're activists, so they're very busy right now. So it's something I have to hold out on. But yeah, it's my shame when I look over lists of 30 or 40 guests in a row and think that's a really white podcast, Gil. You didn't plan it, but you just ended up like that. So yeah,
it happens, and the thing to do is notice it and take steps to do better, right? Like we all know we're not perfect. We all know we fucked up. But like regretting moments where we could have done better isn't useful.
Yeah.
Doing better is. If the regret causes you to do better, awesome. I think I want to say it was Bell Hooks has like a really awesome piece on this, and I can't remember the name because ADHD.
That's your excuse for everything.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, before we got to this point, though, how were you dealing when we talk about the social isolation side of things? How difficult was that aspect of it in terms of both being socially isolated and, as you say, having a couple 100,000 people, checking in on you and sitting in on your streams and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy myself when people are there and we're like interacting. I've done cam streams that where it's just like me sitting there being like, you know,
So,
while it's crickets, let me do one of my favorite things, which is to talk about this really interesting porn thing that I watched. Now we're getting recommendations. Okay, we're talking, we're having fun. But then like some days like it would just be like, hey, so I feel like I've been through all of my subjects and we're just sitting in silence and this sucks. So I feel like it's better to have 30 people in a room and have half of them be interacting than it is to have 300 people in a room and have them just like sitting there watching me.
I guess that's a question. You have that experience, with Cam, with streaming, knowing that the audience is locked in, that, they don't have options for going out and doing X, Y, and Z. Does that change their approach in a way that you've noticed?
Well,
Is the dynamic different, I guess, from this to sort of past work?
I don't know, because I hadn't done that much streaming
Okay.
prior. I'd done maybe 22 hours.
I don't know what that is.
It's not much. Like
Okay.
20 hours. That's really like,
Okay.
they're people, if it's their job, they do at least 20 hours in a week.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Or like most of them do. And then there's all the other, like, the promotional work, the this, the that, brand building, marketing. So yeah, it's not much at all. So I can't really compare. I know either the Daily Beast or BuzzFeed did a piece where they spoke to a number of CAM performers, but I'm blanking on what the differences were, aside from because people were turning to camming, like coming from with no experience in the sex industry, setting up cam accounts and OnlyFans when they were trying to make up for lost income. So that caused everyone's take to go down a bit.
Sure.
And I set up an OnlyFans when we had to shut down the hard goods store because I needed to replace that income to pay my employee. So I'm like in a gray zone as far as being part of the problem there too.
Yeah. I was sort of wondering, I'd read that, I think it was a piece in Elle magazine about the amateurs flooding OnlyFans and whether that causes a problem for people for whom it was the primary revenue, I guess.
Yeah. So I just, I looked at the profiles of some people who OnlyFans has been like a big part of their income. Mm-hmm. And I thought about what they post and what I would post. And I tried to set my rate so as to not like destabilize the market.
Right.
And I'm okay with it. Like it's like possibly not the most ethical moment of my life, but like far from the most self-absorbed thing I've ever done.
That's an achievement for this situation that we're in. That's all you can hope for.
Yeah, and if I didn't have the employee because she's part-time and her other job is in the service industry, so she lost that. So if I didn't, at least until New York City can reopen to at least phase 2, and even then, like it's not going to be like it was before. So I was like, okay, like I have to keep income steady to make sure that she at least has some stability. Otherwise I would have been like, okay, let me just, I'm fine. Like,
Yeah. Go into bunker mode and yeah.
everything's fine. Just like turtle down, right?
There's a lot of reading to catch up on. We've talked about that before. So is there a place that you're really hoping to go when things start to open, either New York or elsewhere? Is there like any sort of, I really wish I could just go X, Y, or Z?
So my best friend Justin, we're very close. We've been spending like literally 5 hours some days on the phone together, and like we like call.
It's like high school again.
Yeah, no, we like call other people too. Like we're like, oh, we should get so and so on the phone, or like, who'd have a really good take on this person. Let's call him up. And so it's like it's a weird like 4-person talk show. Like completely audienceless, but it's like sort of that format.
There's something to be said for not recording these things. It's okay. I've discovered that, as much as I like doing the recorded ones, it's nice just shooting the breeze with people. And
yeah, no, it's really great. Yeah, Justin, before all this, we had AEW Wednesdays. It's a professional wrestling promotion that's founded by, just like, I won't get into the details, but it's a really moving story. Like the son of a professional wrestler left the big promotion to found his own company and like do better with inclusiveness. And they're on TNT every Wednesday, and that's really exciting.
Yeah. I've seen your Twitter recaps or your live streams of it. Yeah, those have been pretty entertaining.
So we would get together at Justin's apartment, and we would order from this one Mexican place, and I get the same thing every time. I get 2 bean nachos with guacamole, and that's like the thing that's just been the thing. It's like,
yeah,
when this is over, like I wanna go to Justin's and eat those nachos, and then the next night we're gonna go to the Balkan restaurant, and like it's just
yeah. I'm with you. Just to have the not the old reliables, but yeah, just the things that we were accustomed to. Yeah. I don't know. Do you find it, it'll be a weird question, but separating the sort of private Stoya from the online version, the one that you share with the world?
No, not at all. I do.
Yeah.
Let me just give you the full spectrum of things that I do through my iPad. While sitting in the same chair at the same desk with the same iPad under the same light, I talk to my boyfriend. I take group therapy. I've done a remote shoot with Steve through the wall because I got jealous of all the remote shoots he was doing. I want to do a real shoot, and I'm like, maybe later, but I want to do a remote shoot. I have wrestling hangouts over Zoom with Justin and some other friends of his that are into wrestling as well. I do Twitch with my friend Bijan. We're playing Dream Daddy. On his channel, I do interviews on the Zero Spaces channel at zerospaces.com. Bija's is Bijan Steven. And yeah, so we like interview people who are sometimes like friends of mine. And Steve sits in, and I've done like many vids, like sitting there. I've done like Zoom events, like Let Them Eat Cake had me on a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, wait, I can take my tits out? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna do my reading topless. Yeah. So that was cool. But like, same chair, same pants. I don't change my pants for any of this. I wear the same. I have 2 pairs of them. They are my summer at home pants. and they're falling apart, and I will like do full makeup. Well, full makeup for me, which is eyebrow, eyeliner, mascara, um, eyeshadow.
Yeah.
But like I'll do full eyes, right? Full eyes,
Mm.
and put on like a fancy bra top, and have Steve do the lighting and wear the same damn pants that I sleep in. And I'm doing all of these things in the exact same setup. So things are blurrier than ever.
I believe it.
Like I'm like in the
When
green
you talk,
room and my name is like Stoya, just Stoya. And I'm like, God, it's just don't, what, should I change it to my legal name so this can happen, but backwards when I go into a public event? Like,
jeez. I mean, I know I've got a fragmented mentality and psyche, but yeah, keeping track of names like this and the face you're putting out there, that's got to be again something you just give up on and just put the same one out for everybody.
yeah. And it was like,
Now, you did mention though that you were running low on eyebrow pencils recently. I thought there was a tweet on that, and I just wasn't sure if you managed to overcome that shortage because
I did. So you know, the webcam on the iPad and the MacBook, at least the versions that I have, is not really the nicest.
No.
And so the outside half of my eyebrows disappears if I don't fill them in with pencil.
Yeah.
So I was using eyebrow pencil like, every other day. And then I realized I was running low, and I was like, oh, but Steve and I have to shoot this thing. And I ordered more, and we had to push the shoot twice because the eyebrow pencil still hadn't shown up, but it finally did. If I'd known it was going to be this much of a thing, I would have ordered two at the same time. But I think retail for curbside pickup should be open in New York City before I run out again.
You'd hope. I mean, I ordered 6 extra packs of the little notepads I use, which are from France. I decided early on, I don't know how long this is going to last. Those are the pads I write in. Let me just make sure I'm stocked up for a bunch of months. But again, there's fetishes and then there's legit business expenses, I guess, which is probably the story of our lives.
I use this toothpaste that I get in Serbia. I don't think it's like uniquely Serbian. I think it's actually German, but it doesn't burn my mouth. And that's very important. It works, but it's not uncomfortable. And I ran out. I was supposed to go to Serbia in April, and I ran out of I can probably get like 3 more toothbrushings out of the tube. So
and you're saving those?
No, I'm still using it.
Okay.
But on the one hand, I'm really proud of myself for judging to the month how much toothpaste I need to bring back. If I'd been able to get on the plane, I would be totally fine for toothpaste. But yeah, it's there's going to be some days where I have to brush my teeth with this Crest coconut whitening.
And we know these are first world problems, but they still suck,
Yeah. It's just these little things where it's like, actually, this made my life a lot better. Lots of things did not make my life a lot better.
That's a question I've asked people recently. Like, what things have you learned about yourself, but in terms of like what's essential and what isn't? The toothpaste, we will say, is essential.
It's not essential,
what else have you?
But it's like pretty nice.
Yeah. But what things have you come to realize matter that you maybe didn't think mattered before?
So one thing, like I always knew friends mattered, but I have found out over the past few months how much people that you can turn to in moments of crisis are.
Yeah.
It's not like I found out who my friends are. It's like, oh, like we're like leaning on each other and we are both better for it. Or like all better for it, but in each interaction, both better for it.
Yeah.
And that's been really deep for me, that gratitude for having those relationships and the alleviation of burden that a conversation can bring. I have found out that Steve and I really do belong together.
Oh, good. I was going to ask him the same question. So, good.
Hopefully he's not eavesdropping. But I found out like we really this has been a stressful experience, being locked in an apartment with someone all day, every day for months. And we got to work. We did stuff. We got stuff done. Took care
but also didn't get on each other's nerves? Or knew when to let off when you got on each other's nerves?
It was more the latter. Right. Like one day I got like straight up bitchy with Steve. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna go meet some friends for some socially distanced drinks. I'll be back in like 4 hours. And I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's it's good to recognize that sort of thing, and we don't have another option here. Let's de-escalate and figure out where to decompress, I guess. Now, you when you talk about getting stuff done and being productive, you've managed to produce a new issue of Zero Spaces, right?
We have.
Tell me how it came together. I guess some of it was done before all this, but tell me.
Oh, all of it.
How it all fit.
All of it was done before this. There was just a little bit of like editing that had to happen, and I had to deal with the paperwork. But it's, I don't feel right going into promo mode with it right now.
I know.
I put so Zero Spaces, the live issue, the very first one.
Yeah.
Had a profile by Luna Malbro on Cayenne Dora Show. And so a couple of days ago, I went into the Zero Spaces admin and I was like, okay, let me make that article free. Like, let me put the interview with the teledildonics person behind the paywall and put Luna's Cayenne profile in front of it, because Cayenne is an amazing activist in the sex workers' rights community. She's a trans Black woman. And, Luna's piece was really wonderful, and Luna's Black. And it was like, that's appropriate, but I don't even feel right, like tweeting, like,
yeah, I'm with you. I understand.
And it just doesn't, it doesn't feel right. So please go read Luna's profile of Cayenne in the live issue, and check out Glitz, check out Cinnamon Love, check out Giselle Marie, check out Cayenne, check out Anna Fox, check out Misty Stone. They have fleshlights. Just like go all those places. Next time I'll talk about.
Yeah. We'll get back to it. I'm sure there'll be another issue after that, and we'll talk about both of those in the future when things are when we've progressed, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know how we don't consider anything to be normal again. Do you have that as a framework, or do you think of whatever the future is going to be, it's not going to be like things were before?
I really hope it isn't like things were before.
Yeah.
Because in my line of work, you see a lot of suffering. You see harassment, dehumanization, all of these awful things being done to people because they're sex workers, because they're gay or lesbian or bisexual, because they're black, because they're Hispanic, because they're Asian. Like, all of these things, you see all of these harmful stereotypes just like flying around. And because I've had the benefit of having so many intelligent people in my life, a lot of them women, and so many people who are deeply concerned with equality, I've learned a lot about how systemic a lot of these things are. And so the fact that Governor Cuomo is saying in a speech a couple of days ago, hey, I want to point out that what happened to George Floyd and the higher than it should be rate of Black and brown people experiencing complications from COVID, like these two things are related. And
yeah.
It's, I'm sorry, I don't even remember what you're
just what the future is. I mean, I guess it's a question of what this situation teaches the rest of the world about how people outside the mainstream have been living all this time. Those systemic issues that you were bringing up.
That's the idea of like things going back to normal. It's like, okay, maybe it was normal for you, but like my normal involves not having a chip in my debit card for a year after it was quote unquote required legally, because I use a small bank because big banks were shutting down the accounts of adult performers a few years ago.
Right.
Like that was my normal. Normal was hearing about systemic racism being applied to people I care about. Like that was like normal was never good. We don't want to go back. It's not like we can't go back to normal. It's like, no, we really like that's not the right direction to go in. Because it really like normal was not good for so many people. And I don't know what the percentage is. Like I can't say like normal was awful for 42% of American citizens. I wish I could. I'm not that kind of brain. But like, yeah, no, I have this like visceral reaction to the idea of going back to normal.
I'm with you, and I don't know if you've got family, like nieces or nephews and such, but, I don't have kids, so that's the closest I come to thinking about, next generation and the future and all that. And I'm gratified as to how pissed off they are about everything right now. They're like 21, 18 and younger. But yeah, that sense that, there's no need for us to try to go back. This is at least some sort of opportunity if we can seize it.
We've already had a win. AVN has gotten rid of the category of interracial.
Yeah.
That is something positive has occurred. And, if everybody is working, talking to the people in their family, talking to their friends, putting pressure on organizations in their own industry, boosting voices that we think need to be heard, then I think we really can get somewhere.
Amen. I usually end with a cute, goofy question, but I don't think that's really appropriate given the state we're in. I'll ask instead, are you able to get any reading done? Have you been binging on any books, comics, etc.?
I have been binging on Lara Antonio's The Marketplace.
Yeah.
It's a book about BDSM, or it's a series about BDSM. It's pornographic.
Yeah.
It's very sexually explicit, but it's like soothing. Like, I know exactly what happens.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. You know, the book club selection this month is a Lara Antonia book because Pride Month. You know, and whether it feels right to have book club at the end of the month or not is going to be a question. But what was scheduled was Lara Antonia book because Pride Month. So, you know.
And I did tell Miss Scorpio that I would mention the Sex Lit Book Club when we got together to talk. But again, circumstances make things a little weird. I'll put a link to it in the show notes so people know where to go if they're interested. If it's, you know, something that happens.
Yeah, I would say link to glitzinc.org.
Yeah.
Yeah, because also Sexlit has not had the most racially diverse group of authors in.
But we did talk about one you're hoping to get this fall, so, you know. Yes. Chip Delaney, who we know brings a lot of different perspectives. But
oh my God, he's amazing. That is a happy thing to end on. Yeah.
Chip has taught us a great deal.
Oh my God, I have learned so much from that man's work.
Yeah, he's the nice thing is he is as insecure about his work as any other writer I've ever known. Basically, you know, he's still, if I finish something of his that's been, you know, regarded as the greatest novel of the 20th century and this, that, and the other, he'd still be like, so, if you don't mind my asking, what did you make of it, Gil?
Oh.
It's one of those, like, you know, Chip, Umberto Eco thinks it's a great book. You really don't need my opinion for validation. Oh, you do? Okay. So, you know, that's when I realized early on that writers will never be ego satisfied, I guess.
All right. So that
is a happier note to end on.
Yeah.
Stoya, thanks so much for coming on. I know this is everything's difficult. Even just when we were, you know, in pandemic situation, it was difficult. But for me, the last week of doing this has been, I don't even know what the tone should be, how to talk, you know, when all this is going on around us. So, you know, thank you for doing the heavy lifting, I guess.
Thanks for having me on. I'm not like castigating myself over it, but I do feel like it would have been slightly better for me to reach out like yesterday and be like, hey, I'm feeling awkward. I'm gonna want to talk mostly about the Black women you should be paying attention to.
I want you to send me a list if you can. Besides Cinnamon Rose, send me leads, send me people.
Yes.
You know, I need to learn, and anything I can do to help get the conversation going in the right direction. You know, I'm here.
Oh, I literally started typing the list right now.
I was hoping that's what the sound was. Okay.
Yeah. No, I was like, right, I got to send Gil sorry.
That was Stoya. Go check out her Twitter, Instagram, OnlyFans pages, and just look up her name. You'll find lots of other sources for her. She goes on all those by the handle Stoya, which is Stoya. Like she was saying, this is not the time to promote or self-promote, but bookmark zerospaces.com and visit that sometime. That's her online magazine. I think she's doing good work there. And she did mention getting some things in front of the paywall to sort of help the cause. So you should also check out her regular Slate column, How to Do It. Just search her name there. Her website is Hello Stoya, which is spelled just like it sounds, all one word. Again, she's easy enough to find, you know, the various places that she's active, I guess. But again, OnlyFans we talk about during the episode, which is a way of helping support her and what she's doing. Anyway, we will be back tomorrow with another COVID check-in. This one's going to feature Stoya's roommate, the photographer Steve Prue. It is a much more lighthearted episode than this one, partly because Steve's a giant goofball. Visit vmspod.com and chimeraobscura.com/VM, and you can find links there to the COVID-19 sessions, which has all of these daily episodes I've been doing since March. You can also subscribe to the Virtual Memories Show via iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, whatever your favorite podcatcher is, to make sure you get every episode, including the 370 or so in-person ones I recorded back in the before time. Now, when it comes to supporting this show, send me an email, send me a nice note, not a nice note, send me a note and tell me what you think of the podcast. Go get an issue of Haiku for Business Travelers. You can go to that website, haikuforbusinesstravelers.com, and get that. But when it comes to money and resources, I don't need your help. My Patreon supporters have been great. My day job is paying me just fine. This is what I do for love. What you should be doing if you have money to spare is support the artists and writers and other creative people in need right now through their Patreons, GoFundMes, Kickstarters, Indiegogos, whatever. There are also plenty of charities, both related to the pandemic and now specifically for the bail funds and freedom funds related to the arrests that are taking place because of the protests. There are a lot of people in need. There are institutions that need changing. You can help. So whatever resources you can spare, give. Go do some vetting, make sure they're legal, appropriate, etc. But help where you can. This is a time we all need to come together. Now, I am Gil Roth. It is Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. And this was a bonus episode of my Virtual Memories Show podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Keep the conversation going, stay safe, and wash your damn hands.